Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, free enterprise viewers, and welcome to the Saturday Hero's Journey race. On our featured racers today are Tallgrant and Possimorpheus. I am S-Grunt. Joining me in the restream booth today, we have Alchemy, the restreamer and club captain of this club, as well as helping out with many other club things. Ribbon Quest pushing the buttons today, and joining me on the comms side is, as on their first time on comms, it's Raging Levine. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so today's hero is Dark Knight Cecil. So this is a fairly interesting flag set where we have the meta objective of never turning Cecil into a paladin, never visiting the room on ordeals, which would transform Cecil into his paladin form if we can possibly avoid so. Other interesting bits of the flag set, probably the most significant piece of it is the wacky flag night mode is enabled. How appropriate that our Dark Knight is clad in darkness, if I might say so. The effect of which is to close most of the overworld shops in addition to actually making things spooky and dark out.
Yeah, we're going to be missing pretty much every overworld shop. We still get the Locked Baron shop, the Troya pub, and the Eblin Cave shop, which I guess technically is underground, but most of that stuff is closed for the evening, which is pretty cool.
And our objectives today reflect, of course, Cecil's journey in his time as a Dark Knight, starting with his journey to Mist Village and Mist Cave, the defensive football, and, of course, the going into the Antlion Nest, and completing the rescue on Mount Hobbs. Of course, the journey doesn't stop there. This is a seed where we will eventually need to fight Zeromus. So... It's not very often that we're going to see a Dark Knight Cecil in the Zeromus fight, so this should be rather interesting.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for a seed where Ordeals is in no way required, so that our racers are going to have to completely dodge that and take DKC into the Zeromus fight, with only one key item, I believe, required explicitly by the objectives, right? We only need the package. The rest of these are pretty easily accessible right at the start of the game. I suppose that could very well happen depending on where some of the other gating key items are located.
Well, we will, of course, need to get to the Zeromus fight as well. But we are off. It appears that... so we're getting underway here. Cecil is joined by Rydia as our starting character. We have Valalis in Baron. And that is a life staff, so no starting key item for us.
Yeah, we're getting zonked right off the bat, but I'm sure we'll be able to find some characters and key items pretty quick here, and I'm excited to enjoy the visual feast that is night mode in just a moment.
Yeah, microphone's out in chat. We got a black sword to start with. That is part of one of the starting kits.
As Corey Hart says, don't switch a blade on a guy in shades, and we are going to probably be switching that shadow sword out for the black sword here, so Cecil already violating one of the key Corey Hart sunglasses at night tenet.
Alright, and Possum heads directly to Mysidia to look for additional characters, because we do have the free characters on this flag set.
I always enjoy Possum's precision wiggling as he proceeds with objectives.
Alright, and that's Edge and Tella. Unfortunately, Tella is not going to be as useful in this flag set as he might be otherwise, since we, with any luck, will never be going to Ordeals to actually get Tella to full power.
A very limiting start for that Tella, just that 6 spells on each side of the magic there. Yeah,
well, we have Edge, and as I'm sure many people here can attest to from certain flag sets that have been played recently, Edge in the early game is very powerful. And for some reason, Possum is heading up Ordeals right now. He's probably going to be looking at just... Oh, he's just probably just looking for the character now that I think about it.
Yeah, looks like this is a free character. Oh, it's another Tella! That is tough.
Another Tella, and he just resets after this. is actually kind of interesting play on Possum's part because he's normally a fairly strong advocate of not following all of the early character checks. Because you might run into someone like Golbez fairly early, and it's very useful to have only 2 or 3 people in your party whenever you take that fight, just because you have less people dying to worry about. You're in a better position to actually have people up to be able to take that fight properly. Possum now heads to Troya to pick up the key item from Bedward. That is the Magna Key.
Ooh, that speaks well to the possibility of fading ordeals. That's another box checked off in the required key items for progression. You love to see that.
Yep. We can unironically get underground now.
That's also going to give Possum access to a lot more shops, because right now he's off to check one of those open shops here in Troya.
Yeah, and Possum looking in the Troya Hub shop. The most important thing that we're finding there, well, we see 2 things of importance there, the hourglasses and life potions if we need them. Talgrat is finding that same shop and is reaching the same conclusion that those are the most important things to find there.
Those are some pretty good pickups there as Possum heads to the watery house for yet another character.
And that character is Kane. So now if we decide that we need to complete Baron Castle, Kane will be very handy for that Valvalis fight.
Val always looking to twirl towards freedom, but Kane very happy to stop that with his jumps.
Yeah.
And it looks like Possum is on the way to pick up yet another character check and the hovercraft.
This is very interesting. I'll need to remember to ask later why Possum is doing all of the character checks first, because it's not usually in his playbook.
I think one of the thoughts that I had while looking at this flag set is that given that so many of these objectives are completable so early, we could very well be in go mode pretty quickly if we're lucky. And so maybe Possum is just looking to play towards a particular Zeroma setup based on whatever party he can assemble very quickly.
Yeah. So this is with Kane at the ready, with Edge at the ready especially, and with that Young pickup. We've got a pretty standard Berserker setup going here at the moment. And of course, as I said earlier, with Edge in the party, we're probably going to see, we can see Possum putting Edge in the center slot here. Since Edge outspeeds most of the overworld checks, we're probably going to see a lot of those, a lot of these early boss fights just melt in the face of... Well, that's interesting. Possum, that's an objective you just reset out of.
Oh, Possum passing on that Sid, but yeah, resetting out of objective number 5, rescue the hostage on Mad Hobbs. Don't worry, I'm sure he'll be back soon.
Yeah, there's no reason that we can't take that check right now, I don't think. Anyway, it now looks like Possum is heading underground here.
Just throwing everything down the well here. Life potions, you know, just the whole kit.
Well, that's gone.
Meanwhile, Tall Grant over in Damsian, checking out that character check, gonna find that Yang here, and picking up the hovercraft as well. Now this is interesting. You mentioned with the Edge that a lot of those overworld checks can melt pretty early, but we also do have this underground access right away. In a flag set like this, do you prefer to just go and knock out those overworld checks really quick, try to find the package, maybe the Darkness Crystal if you're lucky, or do you head underground early?
For me specifically, I'm inclined to head underground almost as soon as I possibly can, just on the basis that there's going to be, especially with night mode on here, the chances that I'm going to find something useful in terms of loot or in terms of shops is much higher underground, and having that early power bump just by finding something that's usable underground is something which will help you tremendously clear even the rest of the overworld checks. And at such a point as we need to actually start doing the underground checks, we'll be better prepared for that as well. A little bit of preparation, even for some of the early easy overworld checks, can make a gigantic difference.
That makes a lot of sense. The stronger you are, the faster those overworld checks do melt. You save a lot of time if you power up first. Possum checking those shops in Dwarf Castle. Doesn't seem to particularly like what he sees, so off he heads to Tomra. Maybe we'll be talking to a certain dwarf if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. We do see Talgrant is also heading underground now, possibly following the same line of logic here. Not much of interest in the shops so far. The cabins are a nice find, of course. Alright, here's the Job Dwarf room. And Job Dwarf today is a ballistics expert.
Thank you, Possum. We appreciate it. Always love to find out what Job Dwarf is up to these days. Good to get those LinkedIn updates.
Those were Zeus gauntlets for sale in the Tonga armor shop, interestingly enough.
Zeus gauntlets, defense swords. That's kind of a feast for Kane down here.
Of course, Possum hasn't done enough looting to be able to afford any of this right now, but it's good to keep in mind for later.
And of course, because we are on S Wild, we could see pretty much anything in these shops, which a little bit mitigated by the fact that only some of the shops are open. But that does mean that you can save up your loot and just go ahead and sell it in bulk for something really awesome.
This might be the one flag set where you would not be happy to find a crystal sword in a shop.
Yeah, what is that? 216,000 gold for a trophy to hang on your wall?
The common way to quantify it these days is 7.9 sirens. That might be an S quarter specifically.
I forgot the barter exchange method. Very good.
It's more relevant when Cecil doesn't exist in when Paladin Cecil doesn't exist in the flag, of course. Possum is now at the bottom of the Fey March. Our key item today is not a key item at all, it's just a Bahamut orb. We do have a Rydia that will go nicely with, or we did. I think Possum no longer has that Rydia.
Possum picking up the pass in this spot here, it looks like. Going ahead and selling the farm a little bit to pick that up.
And that is
a little bit of easier access.
So that's a nice find here. There's also moon veils for sale in that shop, interestingly enough. Of course, they're not exactly cheap, but interesting to know as well. Nothing relevant in the armor shop.
Veils as well as those vampires we saw in case we're looking to do 1200s on Zeromas here.
Oh, there's Masamune. Edge is very happy to see this.
This is great. We've got the boomerang set up to back row Edge if we want to. It looks like this is going to be a fun time for Edge to just chop through some checks.
It's just too early for Possum to be able to afford buying any of those.
I like this idea, new wacky flag, barter only. Just out there trading on the commodities market.
Make a killing on Siren's futures or something to that effect. Okay, Possum is checking bosses in Feymarch. We see that's Rubicante as opposed to Elements, which is the reason he's taking that fight to check which of them it is. Resets out of it immediately because, of course, a team of base level characters with 1 health each is not going to be able to take either of those fights.
Yeah, just gathering that information. Very, very well done by Possum here. Something that I think I've learned a lot from is watching these experienced runners and the ways in which they gather that information and how they use it later. It's very cool.
Yeah. So Talgrand, of course, is following much the same path right now. Meanwhile, Possum is heading down into Self Cave to set up the first of 2 Sheila checks. Those, of course, being the checks associated with the pan. You do not need any key items in order to do this first check. So by going and talking to Yang here, even if you don't have the pan, that will enable you to pick up a key item in Fubul when you go back there.
And since we are on K-Main, Summon, and Moon, once we swing the pan at Yang to wake him up, we are going to see another extra check there because of K-Summon as well, albeit a lower percentage one.
Alright. Possum is heading back to Troya. He might be intent on buying hourglasses here with some of the loot that he's found. There's a stack of life potions, and it looks like 3 hourglasses. Well, here. Oh, even more than that.
Now, do you think those hourglasses are just for situations where we fight things that don't have the boss bit, or is Possum looking to set up a specific grind here?
So if I'm buying hourglasses early, it's usually with a mind of checking early trap chests, especially the ones in Eplin. Although those are also useful for certain types of grinds, and of course the so-called free bosses as well.
Those Eplin trap chests do have a lot of sweet loot in them, so that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Looks like Possum's looking to change it up here in the Tower of
I am
Wishes.
guessing that this is Possum picking up Rydia, which is exactly what's happening, because that Bahamut orb, as has been mentioned in chat, is a significant game changer.
Makes a lot of sense. That's going to be a very powerful summon that can carry Possum through some of these fights.
Yeah, what we're going to see now is a trip to Evelyn Castle, I think. That would be the main reason that you would go out of your way to buy hourglasses like this, and that is exactly what is happening. Now, interestingly enough, this is Possum's... This is going to be Possum's first set of battles. He has not taken any of the boss checks so far. So,
everything's starting to make sense. 3 hourglasses, 3 trapped chests. The math checks out.
Yes, indeed. That is a. I mean, this is a. Ooh, that's a cursed ring. The first chest. That's useful unto itself. But this is what we're seeing here is because we've got Edge as the anchor here. We're going to be able to get those hourglasses out fairly quickly, and we're going to be able to just we're going to see 1 round of attacks from each of these fights before the hourglass kicks in and they get stopped. Edge will be able to take enough hits that someone should still be standing by the time we get enough attacks in to be able to win these fights. But we're definitely in a position to be able to take these fights right now, because even if everyone else gets knocked down like this, the stale mana is soft now. We can take our time getting everyone else up, especially because of the other hourglass 3s, that's going to take an extremely long time to wear off.
I just want to go back to that cursed ring pickup. That is very interesting in light of the fact that we are on Sea Hero, so Cecil is going to be our anchor here, and I know that he hits he hits some pretty high agility marks as he levels up, which he will have to level up because, once again, Sea Hero rules. He gains experience points even if he is watching the ground. So that should be a nice way to help anchor the agility a little later.
Yeah. Polygot now catching up with checking Yang here in Self King. Meanwhile, Possum has successfully taken the first of the trap tests. We're going to get a huge experience boost for all of our base level party members, especially that Rydia. And we will get a trap chest reward, which in itself could be a huge hit. That.
Oh, a crystal sword, you say?
Like I said earlier, the one flex that we have as Cecil when you're not happy to see a crystal sword. To be fair, we have seen enough loot where selling the crystal sword will actually be useful.
I was going to say, I'm sure they have a solid buyback program down in March. Maybe he can get some store credit for that, get some Masamunes.
Okay, and there's Possum finally remembering to use the Bahamut Orb now that Rydia is a little bit more than base level. Might also be a sign that he's done living here. You can see that exit out of the tower. Fortunately, Dark Knight Cecil can't equip a lot of things, but the Cursed Ring is something that he can equip, so that it maintains its usefulness under Dark Knight Cecil Zero circumstances.
Yeah, we saw Possum flash that status screen there for us. We saw 1 agility currently for Dark Knight Cecil, putting the rest of the party at relative agility 1, I believe.
That should be the case. We've got enough levels on everyone now that everyone else should have at least 3 agility at this point, which would be enough to put them at RA1 compared to their Cecil. We do see Possum head back into Castle Evelyn. He's not done looting after all.
Our Valiant Tracker Ribbon Quest here in the chat pointing out, because Pass is in Feymarch, as long as the package is not up on the moon, we could be entirely moon-free in this seed.
The moon could be completely haunted, as far as completing the seed goes. Okay, meanwhile, Telegrant is in what I believe is an Antlion Cave and finds the Dark Imps there.
Looks like we have our first objective completion coming up for that objective for the Antlion nest.
Alright, and besides being an objective, this is of course a key item check as well. And that is the Twin Harp. Fan favorite, not hard required in the seed as far as we know, but there will be many people here happy to see that.
The only instrument that plays the song of my people is the Twin Harp. I'm really hoping we get to see that today, but you know, better lucky, I suppose.
Okay, Possum in the meantime has found the second trap chest, and is just letting Riddick cut loose here. Goodbye, Lamias and Black Cats. Unfortunately,
you need to make sure you hit that run animation as you finish that trap chest, because cool guys don't look at explosions. Come on, Dark Knight Cecil.
Unfortunately, Kane is not up and awake to see that we got a Dragoon Spear from that chest, which he would otherwise be very happy to see. There's a lightsaber.
We have Tallgrant heading over to yet another objective, off to rescue the hostage on Mount Hobbs, presumably.
That appears to be the case, and we have Possum finding the third and final trap chest in Castle Emblem.
We'll see if Possum takes a moment to steal some Bacchuses here, or just goes for the kill.
And interestingly enough, Telegrant also exits out of Mount Hobbs. And
I see. Yeah, we have a Kenazo at Mount Hobbs. We are noping out of that. I understand now.
I mean, very few bosses in that spot are much of a challenge in my view. Especially not with if you've taken a couple of checks, even Kenazo there is probably not much of a threat. And as our restreamer is pointing out, Possum is taking the time to steal Bacchus wine from the Mon Ogres, taking full advantage of that edge.
This is a great spot to do it, considering we may or may not see those in the Underworld shops. You just never know. So,
as of course, Possum has already checked all of the Underworld shops and did not find it there. So, if it is in any shops, it would be either along the Kate Evelyn shop check, which requires the hook, or in the Moon shop, which requires the Darkness Crystal. And he doesn't want to wait until he finds either of those in order to stock up.
A solid call, as it looks like Tallgrant is blasting through the Fabul defense here against the King and Queen of Evelyn. Not content to let them just wait and dissipate. He's actually going to take them out.
Well, it looks like he's content to wait now. I must have concluded that he's not dealing enough damage to actually get through them before the cutscene triggers. Good night, Rudia.
The commentator's curse. Just as I say it, the streamer changes their mind.
That never happens around here. What are you talking about? Alright, Possum
now it's been on both ends of that.
Possum is through that trap test and gets a Masamune for his efforts, and now he's glad he did not actually need to buy one. So that's the last of the loot in Castle Evelyn. We found plenty of edge weaponry. We found a Dragoon Lance for Kane. We found the Curse Ring. It's been very productive for him.
Yeah, Possum getting well suited up for some of these objective checks here. Looks like he's going back to Hobbs to take out that troubling turtle.
And Possum puts the boomerang on edge for just a moment in order to get the backward glitch activated on edge.
in terms of glitches, yeah, we have life, sylph, and back row. No warp glitch today, but back row is on, so that is a solid choice.
Yeah, Tall Grant's football defense nets him an adamant rock, the other adamant, if you will.
It does not look like Alt Smith is on in this flag set, so even if we get the adamant and the legend sword, that's not going to be super great if we are fading ordeals the whole time.
Alchemy notes, we forgot to turn on warp glitch in this flag set. Oh well. For you, we do have Super Smith on though, so we can get the Gigantax attacks from forging if we so choose. We have. Well, I guess Kane would be able to wield that, but
the Piggy Sword always a solid pickup for sure.
The last time I had a Super Smith suit, I got the Piggy Sword, and I never got to use it, and I was very disappointed.
I think my last one was Caliburn. It was, as amazing as you imagine.
Before that, that I got Super Smith in, I also kind of Caliburn. Anyway, I'm sure we'll see what that is once we find the Legend Sword as well. Anyway, Possum has taken down the looming turtle to complete that objective. And Tall Grant just breaks up the Bahamut to one-shot Kainatsu as well.
We've got some folks in the chat asking if there is an agreement to fade ordeals if possible, and the answer is yes. Our required meta objective this week is Wrapped in Black. Fade the Mount Ordeals mirror room. Never clear it unless it is required for progression in the siege. So
and
that's
even
why
if
we're
it
going to see Dark Knight Cecil stay around so long.
Yeah, and even if it is required, we cannot go there unless there is absolutely no other choice.
I'm going to catch up on some of these objectives here, heading down to the Antlion Nest.
Tall Grant, meanwhile, is probably looking for the character check ordeals. I don't know if he's done this yet or not.
Our runner's not practicing mountain climbing safety here. It's very dark out there.
Yes,
you can trip on something.
So Tall Grant finds the Tella, dismisses him, and is now turning around and heading back off the mountain, as we would hope for. Alright, and there's the harp on Possum's side. I expect Possum is going to go to Fubul from here to complete that objective as well. Tall Grant, meanwhile, I think is likely to go to Mist Cave at some point.
Yeah, that's going to put Tall Grant in the spot where once he finds that package, he'll be ready to move forward with the rest of the seed once he finds that the moon access there or the path.
Yeah, Tall Grant is in Baron Inn at the moment, probably here for mainly the key item check. Although we see Rosa as the character there, and a Lunar Sparkle as the first boss. And it's Plague, as it happens. There are very few bosses that can show up in this spot that would be much of a threat. It only has 600 health-ish. So with these characters in these levels, it will go down in one hit.
Yeah, this is a nice spot for your scarier bosses to be, especially when your edge can just go ahead and swing those swords.
Ooh, and that's a D-Mist in the second boss spot. Of course, the free key item is on this flag set, so there's no special significance to D-Mist.
That would be a little awkward with the fading ordeals, wouldn't it? If no free was on.
Well, I mean, you can still clear those first two boss checks without going into the mirror room. There's no real point in doing that on a specific flag set because we don't have boss hunts, we don't have the free key item on. So, with any luck, we won't see anyone going to ordeals any more than we already have. Possum finds the inventory boss upon claiming the adamant.
Congratulations on saving my town. Here's this very heavy rock. Make room for it.
Well, we can get rid of it eventually if we find a sword to go with it. And speaking of the sword to go with it, there it is on Tall Grant's side, available in Baron Inn. So we might see a forge check in our immediate future.
That could be fun. Opens up another shop as well.
Possum, having done football, talks to Sheila to get that check from earlier and picks up the Earth Crystal from it, otherwise known as the Party Rock, as it gates 2 character checks and a key item unto itself. Not to mention the ever-popular Troya Treasury.
And that's going to be a Wildish Treasury, which could be a lot of fun. Oh, Possum, no, there's nobody there.
It's closed, Possum. It's nighttime. What did you expect? Fortunately, the treasury is open at all times of day if you've got the Earth Crystal for it.
I feel like that person who's standing guard in the basement of Troya Castle has a really tough job. They just have to stand there 24/7 and ask people if they have the Earth Crystal.
In the meantime, as Possum goes to check the escape boss, it looks like Tallground is on his way to Cape Magnes for chat's favorite check. So at the bottom of Cape Magnes is the Dark Elf, and in order to actually fight the Dark Elf, you need the Twin Heart, and you need Edward's power of rock, so to speak. So, in just a few moments on Tallgrant's side, we will be seeing that cutscene, a fan favorite.
Yes, very, very excited to hear whatever wonderful song we get. Of course, there are literally hundreds of songs in the Free Enterprise randomizer that could come up, so should be fun.
Yeah, meanwhile, Possum is in Troya, desperately trying to clear up his inventory. This may be indicative of an imminent treasury check.
Yeah, once again, having to make room, but here comes Dark Elf.
You can see only Young is no metallic equipment up and running. No means of immediately clearing Young out here.
Of course, if everyone was magnetized, we would get to skip this little scene and just go straight to Perished and move into the rest of the cutscene here, saving a few.
And just as our music scene is about to start, it's time for everyone's favorite game on Possum's side. Right, that treasury. While Possum loots his way through the treasury, it is time for D-Day Spoon B's performance of the moment. So kick back, listen up, and enjoy the show. So while I've enjoyed that little interlude featuring the raid from Final Fantasy VIII and DJ Mylon's Electric Dance Party on Talgrand's side, Possum has looted the treasury and is desperately wishing that he could have another paladin now, and has also taken the time to clear Baron Inn and get the Legend Sword for himself.
Yes, Possum doing so in style, saying, "You have a dragon? Why, I have a dragon!"
Let Rydia block things. I believe Bahamut is not actually classified as a dragon in this game, but that's beside the point.
Well, don't tell Kane. He'll have to put down that Dragoon Spear. Just hang him up.
Oh, no, as long as we find a wyvern, it's all fine. Anyway, Possum has returned to Troya after making that check to head up the Tower of Zot and turn in the other purpose of the Earth Crystal.
Yeah, that's going to be as you mentioned, a key item check, a couple more character checks, a couple more bosses here. And yeah, that's true. We did see a Gungnir in the treasury, so Kane is fine no matter what he fights.
I think right now, considering the state of the objectives, we're mainly interested right now in that key item check, because that's the only thing standing between this party and go mode.
That's true. Possum has the pass. Possum has done every other check besides Burning Village Mist with the package, saving Cecil's saddest moment for last here.
Oh, don't forget, Possum also has several underground checks to do. But in terms of objectives, yes. Talgrand, meanwhile, is also looting his way through Castle Evelyn. Possum finds an alt gauntlet in the Tower of Zot.
This is a fun alt gauntlet.
Ugh.
All alt gauntlets are fun, right? Everyone loves
some alt gauntlets are more fun than others, such as the back attack alt gauntlet, merely disrespectful of your time. Or, of course, there's the ever-popular Masamune altar alt gauntlet.
Ah, yes, where they start with the evil mask, and you go, what in the world is this? All right, alt gauntlet.
Yeah. You can take some time to reflect on the choices that led you there.
Sometimes that's all that's left, but Possum is having no trouble clearing through this alt gauntlet here. Should not be an issue.
Possum's party at this point is plenty powerful enough to deal with any of the fights here. You see a Gaia drum coming out, that makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to get these very sassy gremlins off your screen as fast as you can, I understand it. Looks like we've got Talgrand doing the exact same thing to these trap chests here, just freezing time with Hourglass 3s and chopping on through.
Yeah, of course. So we're seeing Cecil's attack there with the black sword. He instantly killed one of the mad ogres due to the black sword that Cecil has a chance of immediately killing things that you hit it with. You just saw that just now. It's actually very handy for clearing out trap chests like this.
Yeah, as Ribbon Quest notes here in the chat, it looks like Talgrand is taking the time to life glitch through these as well, get a little extra XP for the party.
So the life glitch, of course, is so the way that reviving a character or enemy with a life potion is supposed to work is they get 5 times their vitality in hit points when you revive them. Now, the problem with this and monsters specifically is that nothing has a vitality stat. It's all 0 on the monster side. So if you use a life potion on a monster or a life 1 spell for that matter, they revive and with 0 health and die again immediately. So you get a bonus round of experience for it.
A very handy trick in encounters with high experience point yields, often seen at things like the gold dragon grind on the moon. pretty much anything you want to intentionally grind that has 2 or more enemies in the group.
Meanwhile, Possum is in Zot, has through the alt gauntlet, finds the second edge as that first character. We see that Antlion is the boss at Dwarf 2. The character that shows up in that, the boss that shows up in that first cutscene is the boss that shows up in Dwarf 2, and that is a Porum as the second character here. So interesting enough, Possum decides to take the second edge in place of Kane.
Yeah, Alchemy, our club captain here, pointing out in chat that this is one of the 2 flag sets for this club that does not have no dupes enabled, so looks like that's going to be a double-edged sword today.
Right. Tolgrant, in the meantime, has found his way down into Dwarf Castle, finds Bahamut in the first spot. In a few moments on Tolgrant's side, we're going to see that Antlion as well. And speaking of Bahamut, looks like we're going to see a little bit of that on Possum's side as well.
Yeah, it's all Bahamuts all the time today on the Free Enterprise channel.
Yep. It's a Blarg. I will show you how. Alright.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that C Hero prevented duplicate copies of the hero, but I suppose from an agility anchoring perspective, that makes sense.
Yep. It's not often that becomes relevant. There certainly have been flag sets that I have played where there being only one copy of the hero character has been extremely important. Anyway, Possum is through that fight, and we are going to see in a few moments what the key item from Zot is. For that matter, in a few moments... Oh, that's a hook on Possum's side. Tolgrant through that Bahamut fight. We're going to see Antlion in just a moment here.
Hook not doing too much for Possum yet. No tails to speak of, and unless he's really needing to check out that shop, that's kind of a little bit of a myth.
Well, we could find... We're still going to find one of a couple of items of importance in the shop, I think. We could find Sirens there, I think. We could find Bacchus Wine there. I think we've seen...
yes, of course.
Yeah, we have seen most of the other important items that would normally show up. It is S-Wild, so we're not guaranteed to find any of those in these shops. Except we find apples and possibly silkwebs, which Possum finds a few of those. This is... The combination of S-Wild and Night Mode is actually fairly interesting because we're potentially going to lose out on a lot of important items for this.
Well, Possum choosing not to feed a steady diet of apples to Dark Knight Cecil, which disappoints me slightly, but I understand.
I mean, we want to wait until the last possible moment to do that anyway, right?
Yeah, you got to make sure you load up on those good nutrients before you fight Saromas. I understand.
We do see a purchase of I missed how many it was, but of Mute Knives, which will be very handy if we run into any of the remaining major-oriented bosses, especially with 2 edges to wield them.
Right, we know that Ruby is down in the Feymarch King spot, but we're still looking at plenty of other potential mute knifeable bosses available.
Yeah. Okay, Possum heading back underground, looking to take the dwarf checks, it looks like.
Sounds like he'll be finding an Artemis bow at the end of the process.
Yep. So, Tolgrant just a little bit ahead of that. Appears to be heading to Tower now. This is an interesting play because Tolgrant does not have the Tower key at the moment.
Ooh, yes, this is Keyless Tower. Now, the Tower is also a nice spot for Edge to steal some Sirens if necessary.
That is true. Which may end up being the grind play in the end if we don't find anything else better. Because with the way the shops are set up right now, it is quite possible that nothing is going to be selling Sirens.
Yes, the fun of S-Wild, as you mentioned.
Yes, Wild and Night Mode. And then we have Bahamut meeting Bahamut.
The mirror match. I love it.
Yeah. Just as long as it's not the Cecil mirror match, we're okay with that.
I mean, as long as they both do the speech, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah. Chad having an interesting discussion about the remaining checks that we would make here. Because Solred does have the Loki key right now. The other main check that you could be making right now, the other K main check, would be Sealed Cave. And instead, Talgrant is choosing to go up power and take only this check without having the ability to do the super cannon check at the same time. The essence of this property. Finds a sparkle at the top of the tower.
Very, very excited and somewhat terrified to find out what this moon sparkle could be. Ooh, it's
just paled him. This fight will take a while. It's very slow, as you can see. But I don't think the party is any immediate danger here, as long as they don't, say, break out some of Rydia's summons here. Like, you're probably not gonna be blarging paled in here unless you want to eat severe counters.
Yeah, those counters are pretty nasty, but once you know about that particular fight script, it's pretty easy to take down Pale Dim in a spot like this. Just kind of a pile of hit points.
Yep. Possum is through that outline fight now, getting his Artemis bow in just a few moments. Okay, so while we've got a bit of a lull, and as Talgrant works his way through that pile of hit points, do want to take a moment again to shout out our restreamer Alchemy, also the club captain of this club, as well as Urban Quest, who is pushing the buttons today, and of course, Raging Levine, who is joining me in the comms booth today.
And don't forget to follow our racers, Possum Morpheus and Talgrant. They are fantastic to watch. If you haven't already checked them out, I suggest you do. And of course, my co-commentator Escrunt as well.
Well, thank you. So, faced with the choice, well, Possum doesn't have the Loki key right now, interestingly enough. But faced with the prospect of otherwise doing keyless tower and not having picked up the Loki key himself yet, having not gone to Cave Mangies, is instead choosing to go down into the Paymarch again. May just be here for shopping, or may have an eye on taking some of the bosses that are down here right now.
That's right, we do have the Masamune down here for a potential second sweet edge weapon, and it looks like that might be where Possum's heading.
Okay, we see Possum heading into the weapon shop, selling some things here. Probably, indeed, intent on buying a second Masamune for Edge.
Could buy quite a few.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's right. We have double edge, so we are going to need quite a lot of unique and wonderful swords for these two.
It's all the Genuine deal, right? Genuine Hands of Steel. And Possum just exits out of there. So not intending to getting the bosses right now. It appears to be on a shopping trip right now. Possum probably remembers those Zeus gauntlets he saw and is going to try to be able to pick up some of those.
I think we still have money for at least for one. Oh, no, not quite. Not really at all.
Goodbye, Dragoon lads. You will be missed.
Yeah, it looks like this is going to be a party where Edge and Edge are powering through some of these checks, and Kane's just happy to be here.
Talgrant has finished clearing that Pale Dim fight and does not appear to have gotten anything important for his troubles, and so instead is now taking the time to steal some sirens.
Now, I see that Talgrant is also taking the time to knock down a lot of the party members in this spot here. Can you tell me a little bit about why he might be doing so?
That's easy. The fewer party members that you've got up when trying to do the steal cycle, the short, you don't need to enter in those parry commands for everyone. You can just let Edge take his turns. You can just let Edge enter in those sneaks as fast as you possibly can. Which, given that it's Edge, is quite fast. It's a little bit of a time saver.
Yeah, so in terms of expediency, I was wondering initially if it had anything to do with a desire to slingshot some of the lower level characters, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Just sneak over and over again.
It's a fairly common technique. Generally, the only party members that you want to have up while you're doing this are Edge, possibly a Porum to get some cries in for obscure reasons. Those reasons being that it makes it actually slightly easier for Edge to steal Sirens, which is pretty much the only use that command has in the entire game. Of course,
I would argue that it allows you to express yourself as well if you're really feeling it. That's what I use Cry for.
The only gameplay purpose. Anyway,
it's healthy.
Possum faced with the Twin Heart or Keyless Tower chooses to do Keyless Tower as well. But it's looking right now like if we've got important progression here anywhere that is not Mount Ordeals, that is going to be in Sealed Cave.
Yeah, we are coming dangerously close to having to climb that mountain, something we're really hoping to avoid here today.
Yes. So essentially we're hoping that once our runners get caught up to the Sealed Cave check, which is going to take a little bit, I think, unless I suspect Talgrand is stealing those sirens with the intent of using them almost immediately. But once he gets caught up and gets to Sealed Cave, we're basically hoping either that item is the package or the Darkness Crystal, or one of the other remaining items that we've got that gates another key item.
Now, it is possible, right, because we're on K-Summon as well, that one of those Fey March bosses is holding something we need, right?
That is also true.
So we could see Ruby and Octomam in a few minutes here if Sealed Cave goes awry as well. But it looks like Talgrand is getting...
Yeah, as Xenocat points out, if you get enough cries in, you can steal Star Veils from Eagle Masks, which you're only ever likely to see in the Alt Gauntlet, unless you're at the Masamune altar, unless you're going out of your way to trigger encounters for it.
That's a piece of information I feel like every runner should have in every run.
The circumstances in which you would need to do that ever, I think, are very few and far between. Although I'm sure there are certain vicious enough flags that should make that a necessity.
Well, remind me to set that as a meta objective when I start my club. The low percenters.
Well, I mean, you can set that up anytime by, TMPS cabins if you're feeling generous, SMP if you're not, and just force people to rely exclusively on stealing things. Anyway, so Possum's at the top of tower, is choosing to let the summons fly against Pale Dim and just eating the Quake counters.
Possum looking for style points here, or maybe just trying to speed it up.
Well, that did go fairly quickly, certainly much faster than Hologrand Spike did. And Talgrand is, of course, using those sirens immediately to cook a few eggs. Just to get some levels on people.
Yeah, if we do indeed have to descend into Fey March once again looking for key items, we might be very happy to level right now.
And although I missed both times what the item from the top of the tower was, of course our tracker requests at the top of things to be able to tell us that that was a moon veil that we just got. Wow.
Well, I guess we don't need to steal Star Veils from Evil Masks now that we have this moon veil. Problem solved.
Now, Talgrand appears to be done with his miniature grind and is headed somewhere. Ah, Talgrat is headed to the Forge.
Oh, yes, Forge check.
So, what would you hope to see here with this party under these circumstances?
Well, first I'd hope to see what I just saw, which is Talgrat passing my morality test and stealing from the smith here. But I'm not as familiar with the Super Smith options as I would like to be, but I think an Able Spear would be nice since we're already well set up with Masamune's.
Yeah, so the
edges,
problem
right?
with this is that because it's Sea Hero, we're going to get a Cecil weapon here.
Oh, that's
it's almost,
right.
It's almost certainly going to be... there's a few rewards we can get here that might be usable by other characters, but there is a chance that we're going to get something like the Lightbringer, which is going to be completely useless for us.
Well, in that chance, bring me the... Oh my gosh!
I shouldn't have said anything.
I was gonna say, bring me but that Gigantax, but no, Lightbringer all day, every day. What does that sell for?
Oh,
a wholesome 0 gold?
Yeah, basically none of the Super Smith items actually have any value for sale purposes.
It's not throwable either? Oh
nope.
Dear.
It's like a better crystal sword in every respect that entails.
Definitely the superior crystal sword in this flag set for sure. It's gonna look real nice hanging up on the wall at the top of that tower in Baron Castle at the end of the game, I'm sure.
So Talgrat is now headed into Sealed Cave. So we're looking for one of 3 things here in Sealed Cave, or in the Feymarch fights, which Possum is now doing. We're looking for, most importantly, the package. Alternatively, we're looking for one of the key items, which will either gate more key items or other locations. So something like the Darkness Crystal, which opens up the moon checks, Baron Key, or Tower Key, or Pan, or Rat Tail. So actually, I think a slim majority of the options we've got for actual key items here will enable us to keep progressing. And since we do have the 2 Feymarch checks on the table, I think it still is likely that we'll be able to continue without going to ordeals.
I sure hope so. Folks in chat are making note that keeping that Lightbringer around in the inventory is a good idea, just in that edge case that, well, not edge case, I suppose. The possibility that that we do end up with Paladin Cecil here.
Yeah, there's a question in chat asking where the pass came from. The pass is available in the Feymarch shop.
Yeah, it turns out if you go as far underground as you possibly can, they do sell tickets to the moon there.
Ooh, speaking of tickets to the moon, Possum finds the Darkness Crystal as a result of the Octomammoth check.
Oh, that is big. That opens up a lot of possibilities here. Since K-Moon is also on, that means there are 6 spots on the moon here that could yield that package as well.
We definitely already have the edge case here.
And yes, if packages is on ordeals, that is even more entertaining if we are going to have to watch our racers clear the whole moon. Oh gosh.
Oh no. So Talgrat appears to have made the sealed cave check and finds CPU as the boss here. And if I'm interpreting Talgrat's stream here correctly, he found the tower key as the end of the sealed cave.
I think so, yes. It looks like Ribbon Quest agrees as well here on the tracking side. Meanwhile, it looks like Possum has swapped on the Humble Ice Claw in place of one of those Masamunes for top edge here to deal a little extra elemental damage to Ruby.
And you can see that hit for 7,500, more or less. The hitting an elemental weakness does a lot of damage.
Now, when Ruby pulls the cloak across and would absorb an ice spell, he won't actually absorb ice damage from a weapon, right?
Yeah, you can't, like, a hit from a weapon will never be absorbed. So it might do less damage, but it's never going to be outright absorbed. Anyway, Possum is through that fight. And we'll see what we get from that in just a couple of moments. A Sand Ruby.
Oh yes, Alchemy pointing out some of the technical specifics of how Ruby's cloak works here in the chat. No, he's always 4 times weak to ice. Alright. I didn't know either. I'm learning stuff today. It's great.
Yes. It's a learning experience for all of us. Okay, Possum taking the time to forge and is also looting the rune ring from the bookcase on the way up.
Always nice to see that. Now, if either of these folks did loot that other secret chest that nobody else ever loots, I'd be absolutely in heaven here.
Oh, at this point in time, we don't really have any reason to look for more loot. I don't think. I do think Possum will check the shop before he leaves here.
Yeah, and usually on most flag sets, this is a shop where you find tier 6 stuff. But of course, we are still on S Wild here, so it can be pretty much anything once again.
That is a pretty sad forge shop outside of the curse rings that we already have.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate. The S Wild forge shop is always a bit of a riot.
Is that Bringer Sword any good? Yes, under other circumstances where potentially we have access to Dark Knight, or not Dark Knight, Paladin Cecil, but right now that's not a possibility.
We're only, as is required as the meta objective here, we only are allowed to go to Ordeals if it's the last possible check we can make. The Lightbringer is Cecil's ultimate weapon for the GBA games. It is 255 attack power. It's basically a superior version of the Crystal Sword in most respects.
Looks like Possumorpheus is headed to the moon for some of those checks up there, potentially as the shop as well.
Yep. This is a sensible play under the circumstances. Because of the density of key item checks that we're going to get up there. And Possum's party is certainly in a position to be able to deal with this right now.
Very well equipped.
Okay, in the meanwhile, Hologrant is turning in that tower key. Finds, I believe this is Mylon Z?
Yes, it's going to have to be Mylon Z here. We saw regular Mylon earlier, Mylon and Friends.
So, with any luck, we'll see in a few moments what the item we get from the bottom of tower check is. Meanwhile, Possum has landed on the moon in front of Cave Bahamut, otherwise known as Cave Value. This is an interesting first place to start looking. So it could be the case with Possum's party levels here that he's looking to possibly grind a little bit. We do have the Behemoth encounters along the way here, which will make for levels. It could be that he just wants to check the boss first, though.
Yeah, that little convenient peninsula that allows us to check the boss before we wreck the boss, always nice.
Well, in this case, it's a Sparkle, so we still don't know exactly who the boss is here. This could be... We've seen Plague, we've seen... I don't remember if we've seen any of the other Sparkles in the position that we know about. But in this case, it's Ogopogo. Which is... Yeah. This is a little bit unfortunate because Ogopogo has, apart from the big waves, has exclusively physical attacks. And this is one of the hardest hitting physical spots in the entire game. So we're gonna see bad things happen when Ogo punches someone here.
Ouch, yeah, 174 attack power. Oof.
Oh, I saw a stray sneak in there, which which Edge used to get a Cure 1 potion from Ogopogo. How thrilling.
I did see Possum just preventatively switch battle speeds before this fight started down to battle speed 4. Do you think that was just in anticipation of the possibility of Ogopogo here trying to get some inputs in?
Oh no, sure... the most likely reason for that is Wyvern is still on the list, and you want to have a slower battle speed to be able to sneak in with Starveil if you want to, if you expect it to be Wyvern.
Ah, yes. Blarg prevention is important. We are on Witchburn, but it could still be nasty, as folks are noting in the chat. And you don't want to get blarged on if you can avoid it.
I mean, even if I know it's Witchburn, I will still reflexively start Starveiling people. Blarg is still looming. Anyway, with this fight is well under control at this point. Of course, with DKC being presumably still in 1 or at least single-digit agility range, and with Berserk Edges here, you're just going to see those attacks hitting until it goes down. Of course, accompanied by the occasional blarg from Radiator.
Yeah, we will not have to ride that wave for too much longer. Should just be able... And there it goes.
There it goes.
I'm definitely in suspense for what we get here.
A Baron Key, which opens up 2 additional key item checks for us.
That's right. Ooh, so even further from having to do ordeals. Fantastic. And looks like Tallgrant is discovering some of the Paladin Cecil treasures down here in the Troya Treasury. As well as that Stardust Rod.
Tallgrad is presumably just going to head directly into Zot from here. Yeah, so... Yeah, musing in chat, do you save scum of the Baron Key now? I would not, personally. Because...
I was wondering about that too,
yeah. We still have a total of 6 key item checks on to turn through on the moon here. So I would... as this is being suggested in chat, I would stay up here until I at least find that there's more checks to do on Earth than there are remaining on the moon. But I would still be inclined to continue making moon checks until the last possible moment, because it's very annoying having to go back and forth like that. Ooh, those are sirens in the moon shop.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you, Hummingway. And Possum toying with selling the bringer as he was... Oh, it's gone!
It's gone! Of course, now that we've done that, we're going to end up last locationing ordeals, aren't we?
That would be just amazing now that the bringer has been sold. But yeah, I think it makes sense to stay on the moon. You just have that boss check density here, that key item check density. That makes a lot of sense. And the XP is being pointed out in chat as well. Moon boss XP is nice. If you get Cecil as the last check and you get a brand new shiny level 1 Paladin Cecil, are you going to slingshot him up?
I mean, if that's the last thing that I find, like if I'm last locationing under the circumstances and the item on ordeals is the package, then no, I am not doing that. Because at that point I'm ready to go fight Zeromus anyway.
And at level 1 he'll make a pretty nice agility anchor, won't he?
Yeah, so no shiny sword for you, Cecil. You can go sit in the corner and watch as the rest of the adults take out Zeromus.
I love the idea of taking that holy sword all the way to the moon and just handing it to some random shopkeeper. Like, here, I don't need this. You can keep it.
Yeah, so,
I don't want any money.
Yeah, as Possum heads down into the lunar subterrane on his way to the Murasame altar, the altar closest to the top of the moon. We did pass through another character check, which was another Tella, which makes for a total of 3 Tellas we've seen so far.
In a seed where we have to fade ordeals, 3 Tellas seems very appropriate.
Yes, very much so. Here's the bearing guards. This is a completely free fight. We've got hourglasses, we've got various other means of just neutralizing these guys. They do hit very hard, as you can see, but we've got several means of just neutralizing them.
Yeah, this size spell is going to be very entertaining once it goes off, I think.
Yep.
And yeah, as you noted, this is a very high-tech spot, the Pale Dim spot here. Yikes.
Yep. Alright, there's the size.
Meanwhile, Tall Grant tangling with that alt gauntlet here at the Magus Sisters spot in Zot.
Yep. Alright, into this fight. So, interesting fact, the guards do count as Mage-type enemies, so with those mutant knives, and with size and effect, these edges are probably going to be hitting for quad 9s.
It is nice to see this guard enemy getting a taste of their own medicine with the size spell here as they fire one back at Rosa.
Yeah, that's about the size of it sometimes.
And they just unshrunk her right back up again. Well done.
We did see an attempt to sneak into their life glitch there, but top edge hit too quickly for that to happen. You normally can't life glitch bosses, but of course the guards don't count as boss-type enemies, so you can actually use the life glitch there. There's a life staff. Nice stat stick for Rosa, if we so choose.
15 will is nothing to shake a stick at. Well, I guess she already has a life staff.
Yep. No, not particularly useful right now. So Tall Grant is, through that alt gauntlet, is finding his character checks now. It's about to face elements himself. Interesting to see which characters Tall Grant chooses to take care, if any. Oh, that's interesting. Possum is bleeding the moon.
Oh, that's right. We did start with the life staff, didn't we? Yeah, I wonder what the plan is here for Possum. This is interesting.
Possum is almost certainly going to follow up on that bearing key immediately, I think. So we've got the 2 key item checks here, courtesy of the main throne and the basement throne, because case someone is on.
That makes sense, I suppose. Just taking the Pale Dim spot, it's so quick to do. It's right up at the top. You don't need to go all the way down. Crystal Sword Altar and the rest are much farther. So I think I understand this now.
Yeah. And as is being pointed out in the chat, there are, of course, several other chicks that Possum has not yet made on the Blue Planet. We know none of them will amount to anything at this point, but Possum is selecting to do some shopping in Baron before heading into the castle proper, presumably.
Yes, the 24/7 Baron Armory, always open for business.
Yeah, it's kind of appropriate for the most militant of all of the nations on the Blue Planet. Now that I think about it.
Potions? No, but we got bows and arrows.
Okay, so, pop quiz. Who was the boss that handed over our very first not key item in this seed? I remember, do you?
Oh gosh, no, that information has left my body.
The boss that we were about to see in the Vigan spot here is Valvalis.
This is why I keep a notebook next to my desk, so I can forget to use it.
No, so Valvalis is a problem in many boss spots, but here in Baron Castle with a late game party, our physical hitters here are just going to be able to deal enough damage to outstrip Val's physical evade here, so this is not going to be a problem.
Gosh, I even said something about Val twirling towards freedom like an hour ago, didn't I?
Yep, you most certainly did. Anyway, this fight won't last very long.
Yeah, this should be nice and quick.
Of course, we avoid the question entirely if Val is defeated before she gets into tornado form. Which it appears we're not going to be quite that fast here, but still a pretty goal.
Awesome.
But yeah. Anyway, with now that we're through that fight, we're going to go see who the real ruler of Baron is this time around. And it appears to be Leviathan. So the Fade March has taken over Baron.
Glad to see that the water park status of the Baron Throne Room is still being respected. We still have waves.
Yes, the wave pool. A very important part of the ruling Baron experience. Also very cozy for Senator Crocodile to hang out in. Anyway, this spot has minimal hit points compared to the damage that this party is putting out, so as you can see, the fight is already over. So we're going to see a character check, which isn't important right now, and then we're going to see the crucial key item check here.
Also, some very well-constructed stairs here in Baron. Always nice to see that good craftspersonship.
Here's Sid hanging out in his natural home.
Not today, Sid.
Yeah, not today, Sid. Telegrat took a few moments to check the Cave Eblin shop. I don't think he bought anything there, unless I missed it. And is now headed elsewhere. And yes, as our tracker points out, that is Vanilla Sid.
Telegrat taking a moment to suit up Kane here with some of these goodies.
And Possum finds a rat tail in Baron. So we could stick around Baron to take the Odin throne. It looks like Possum is going to immediately turn to the rat tail before doing that. Which is, of course, a key item check unto itself. Okay, taking a few more eggs in the meantime. Probably going to hit down to the Feymarch bosses after doing so.
Makes a lot of sense. A good reason to level there. I have a feeling that Ruby at that spot could be pretty nasty.
Possum turns to the rat tail and gets a Dragoon Helm for his troubles, which he does not want. It takes the reset to immediately warp back to Baron, so to speak, with the intent of checking the Odin throne.
Always disappointing to see a hat discarded, but sometimes you have to do.
Okay, so just a couple of moments here. We'll be seeing who this boss is, and we'll be seeing what the key item is if this fight goes well enough. That's the Magus Sisters. Oh, hi! We have two edges with mute knives here to meet you.
Look at that. Perfect planning.
The lizards will go on. They're going to be lucky to get even one attack off here.
Even in this high-speed spot belonging to Odin normally, this is going to be a tough challenge for the Magus Sisters.
Those spells do quite a bit of damage here. If I remember correctly, the magic set is actually used for Odin's Tsuken attack, which is why you've got enough magic here for the Magus Sisters to be able to deal that kind of damage.
Yeah, I think this is the third highest magic spot in the game, if I remember correctly, so those are pretty serious. But the Mega Sisters are all done.
A couple of edges and a blarg later, they're gone. Okay, and our item today is a Silent Staff, which is completely useless for us. So, probably Possum is going to head back up to the moon at this point.
Still plenty more bosses on the moon, that's right.
Yeah, 4 boss spots, gating 5 potential key items up on the moon. That's so where our greatest candidates is going to be at this point.
That's right, I always forget that there are 2 chests in that ribbon room hiding 2 potential key item checks. But yeah, this is just the density play here. That makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, so what I think we'll see here is Possum will probably head towards the bottom of the moon checks where the greatest boss and key item density is at this point. The alternative, of course, being the Crystal Sword altar. But you probably, because it takes a little bit of time to get up to the Crystal Sword altar from the branch point, most people will probably leave that for last, just because they can exit out immediately afterwards and not have to walk back to the rest of the altars then.
Right, there are those 3 spots down there, the White Spear altar, the Ribbon Room, and the Masamune altar a little further down. And as Noob Tree is pointing out, Possum also has double XP, so it's a nice grind as well with these 10 key items.
Yes, specifically because Possum has 10 key items, any and all fights now will grant him double experience. Yeah, Possum does have the Sirens to be able to deal with that, and I think still has a couple of hourglasses left over to be able to deal with, say, Gold Dragons if he so chooses. Now, I think
boss XP is pretty nice as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's more likely that Possum will check, at very least face check the bosses first to see if there's something that he can take quickly with his party where it is now.
I think there's a wide range of bosses. And Possum heads for the Crystal Sword altar.
Yeah, Possum chooses to prove me wrong, as usual.
Is it really a stream if our expectations aren't being defied at every turn? That makes it a lot more fun.
Oh, yes. Most definitely.
Ah, yes. Overworld and town locations are Dark Knight palette because we've set the wacky night mode flag, which does, in addition to closing a lot of the overworld shops, also make it dark outside, which is pretty cool.
How appropriate for the Dark Knight to be wrapped in darkness. Okay, Possum heading up on the Crystal Sword check now. And there's our Wyvern right at home.
Can't wait to see which burn this is.
Yeah, I see Possum is also reflexively putting up the start rolls here. And that's Needle. Cute. Anyway, Larg is preparing to meet Larg here.
Not too fearsome from a damage perspective, but if you think too hard about the Wyvern spitting out a bunch of needles, a little more terrifying, yeah. I suppose.
So this is the rare, deliberately baiting a negative play when going up against a Wyvern here. Because, of course, if you summon against a Wyvern, even if Witchburn is on, you will get the negative counter.
Yeah, with those star veils up, that's going to hurt Wyvern just as much as it hurts Possum's party here, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, this is Wyvern's vanilla spot, so the damage output of negative is actually significantly nerfed here compared to many other spots that Wyvern could turn up in. Because, of course, in the vanilla game, you are expected to just outright survive that.
You mean I'm not supposed to take quad 9s whenever I open this spot? That's wild. I don't even know if I can go back to vanilla knowing that.
Yeah, this fight is well under control at this point. You can see even the regular nukes here are dealing less than 1,000 damage to some characters.
It looks like Possum has got things under control to the point that we can bring people back to life pretty quickly after they do get nuked out.
Apparently, Wyvern is not a fan of Tequila getting blarged here. He keeps being ready with those nukes. Anyway, Wyvern is down for the count.
The vendetta against Rydia is over. Our winner, well, sort of, is Rydia.
Ooh, that is the package from the Crystal Sword altar.
Oh my gosh.
Possum is now officially in go mode.
We're in go mode, and we will not be seeing Paladin Cecil. We will be seeing Dark Knight Cecil go up against Zeromus today. No ordeals allowed.
Ordeals is not required today.
Of course, that's good news for our club captain, Alchemy. I'm sure she's very happy to hear that.
Yeah. So, Possum stopping at the Moon Shop, probably going to buy some more Sirens here, with the intent of just grinding the party up to be able to take Zeromus now.
Hey, Hummingway, remember that time I handed you that really cool sword? Could you just give me some of those Sirens?
Prophet is asking if Harp was checked. Tall Grant made the Harp check for us earlier. I believe Possum has continued to fade Harp.
We got some sweet Final Fantasy VIII music, and probably some item or something. Who can remember?
Yeah, I certainly don't remember at this point what that was. Ah, the Loki key, thank you.
You remembered the important thing.
Yeah. From here on out, this is just going to be Possum getting ready to take on Zeromus. So, he's heading into Cave Bahamut. We're going to see Possum grinding on the 2 gold dragons here. Because if you don't want to leave the moon to do this makes some degree of sense. And if you don't have a lot of Sirens to do, this also makes sense. This is one of the Sirenable encounters, which is less troublesome, which will give you the maximum amount of experience per Siren you burn.
Yeah, once these are hourglass, they are really no trouble, and their opening hits are not anything to write home about. Just as long as they don't start casting on you, you should be fine.
Yep. Or you can just let Edge hit them to death and not worry about any of that.
Looks like we're setting up for some life glitching here as well.
Yep. With 10 key items in hand here, and 1 life glitch achieved, these fights will give 180,000 experience each. And so Restreamer points out, no one is done yet.
That doesn't surprise me too much with the package buried behind Wyvern on the moon. That is that's a lot of work to get there.
Well, it is vanilla witch burn, so possibly not as threatening as we're making that sound. That having been said, Possum has made several unnecessary checks to this point, in particular going back to Baron before thinking to continue the moon checks. So it is still quite possible that Possum will be beaten to the punch here. And of course, but yeah, Possum still has to sit through the package cutscene before he can actually fight Zeromus, which will take a little bit of time unto itself.
That means we get to see what kind of wacky sprite pops out of the package. Always
Yes,
one of my favorite parts of our...
Well, whenever we get to see that cutscene, at least.
Fun to see whoever takes the place of those bomb sprites that pop out in vanilla, of course. When was that? I'm pretty new to the free enterprise scene here. Is that something that was randomized recently, or has that always been kind of a wacky thing?
Oh, it's been around longer than I've been around, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that. Anyway, Tall Grant, funnily enough, is in exactly the same place as Possum is right now. Is looking to do some Gold Dragon fights of his own. So is specifically going to check Cave Bahamut and find that Ogopogo there as well in just a few moments. Has a couple more Sirens to burn through first.
Yeah, when you see that little moon sparkle and you wonder, well, could it be Ogopogo? Could it be Wyvern? Popping a couple more Sirens before you head over there makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, Alchemy points out in chat, the flag has been around since a little bit after the Zima Zone 2 tournament of the Europa. It's originally called the Wet Flag, although that has since been permanently enabled and it's no longer a flag. And yes, the newest randomized sprite bit is the cutscene leaving the Baron Throne encounter, where you get to see 2 randomized statues, which in fact was added in the most recent release of Free Enterprise this past March.
We saw that Bahamut sprite there today, protecting us from the trash compactor. That was nice.
So while both of our racers take some time to prepare themselves for their respective upcoming battles, I do once again want to take a few moments to shout out our restreamer and club captain Alchemy, our tracker Ribbon Quest, and of course my co-commentator Richard Levine. Apologies.
And of course, don't forget our runners, Possum Orpheus and Tall Grant, and my co-commentator S Grunt. All fantastic folks. Make sure to follow them if you haven't already.
And with Flawless Timing, Possum is now done the Dragon Grind, and we'll be heading back to Earth to turn in the package and then head off to Zeromus.
This is very exciting. We could be seeing Zeromus very soon here once that package check is done, because Possum does have that pass.
Yeah. And Tall Grant has exited out from Cape Bahamut, is resting up, and will probably be heading immediately back in there to hit the Ogopogo fight.
Just a quick little nap in the Great Whale here. Always nice.
Or outside the whale, in this case, it would be. Possum has arrived at Mist Village to turn in the package. Finds a third edge as the character here. It appears that Luca does not like Mist Village today.
You folks on the overworld have been sending all of these shoppers downstairs, and here's how we repay you.
Yeah. We get a little bit burned up about that. Anyway, that is the last objective on the board for Possum. Possum has now acquired the crystal, and in principle can go fight Zeromus immediately once he gets to this cutscene.
Yeah, we do have to face down a ninja and his mighty titan for a moment.
And as we watch this cutscene, we actually do now have a first place finisher. Tybalt has finished the race with a time of 1 hour 28 minutes and 12 seconds.
Well done! Congratulations to Tybalt. Third edge would be nice, but I think we're a little too far gone for that at this point.
I for one, would certainly be happy to take a party of mostly edges through everything, but it's a little bit too late to do that now. We're just about ready to go by the Big Z himself.
I mean, if you really want some style points, you pick up the third edge, go back down to Feymarch, buy a couple more Masamunes, you know, the whole thing.
Yep. Alright, so normally in vanilla, of course, the pass just gets you access to a fun little side cutscene, but in Free Enterprise, the pass has been reworked to be, once you go into the next room, you're given the option to warp directly to the bottom of the moon on the Zeromus site, so it's very important to have. And presumably now that Possum is headed into the Troya pub to turn in the pass and take that shortcut, we'll probably be starting to see the strange little flags in chat any moment now. So, of course, while Free Enterprise is a randomizer, we can't exactly move Zeromus around because that fight is just too difficult, too scary, too involved. To really work in any other spot in the game. So while we have to leave Zeromus exactly where he normally is, we do want to find some other way of randomizing him. So instead we have a little bit more than, I believe the latest total is 450 possible costumes for Zeromus to wear in the final fight, which leads us to the question that we always have to ask at this point in the seed. And Raging Levine, would you like to do the honors tonight?
I'd love to. Whose butt are we gonna kick today?
And is it cute?
Does it have a butt?
Does it have a hat? Is the hat cute?
Those questions and so many more.
Always more questions. And of course, today we get to witness the rarely seen spectacle of Dark Knight Cecil facing Zeronis.
I think I've literally never seen these two sprites on the screen at the same time. This is wonderful.
I've seen it once. This makes the second time.
For ZZ2, this was not that... Oh my gosh, it's Lavos!
Aha, we have ventured into the Chrono Trigger universe. But yes, with two edges here and a Rydia, we're probably going to see a fairly conventional hybrid strategy for the fights here. Just let the edges berserk up, possibly toss a Star Veil on someone, and then just have those spells and have Rydia cast Nuke reflecting off of those Star Veils. Because of course, Zeronis will counter any direct spells cast on it with Nuke, as you just saw from the use of the Silk Web there. Fortunately, that counter Nuke hit Rydia, who has a Star Veil up right now.
That's just how we drew it.
Yeah, that Star Veil is relevant for two reasons here. One is the obvious direct use of slowing down Zeronis. So the way Zeronis' Big Bangs work is, most of the Big Bangs in the fight, I turn before the Big Bang goes off, which is actually an invisible turn in between the shake you see and when the Big Bang goes off, is when the spell power is set for Big Bang. In the case of the very first Big Bang, that spell power isn't ever set directly, it's just Zeronis' opening spell power. But the counter nuke also sets a spell power. So it's considerably lower than Big Bang's spell power. And so by directly casting a spell on Zeronis at any point prior to the first Big Bang, or later on in the fight, between that invisible turn and when the Big Bang goes off, you will actually reduce Big Bang's damage for nerfing the Big Bang. So the second purpose of that original Silk Web is to nerf the opening Big Bang. So as the rest of the fight progresses for Possum, we may see a few more well-timed direct attacks or crystal uses to nerf additional Big Bangs. Given how much damage these edges are cutting up, we might not even get that far, though.
Yeah, these edges are pushing through a lot of damage. I think we'll probably see that refill shake and probably not another Big Bang at this point between the edges and the reflected nukes here.
Yeah, I think we're just going to push through enough damage here to trigger Zeronis' HP refill and then go directly to Meteor Phase before we see a second Big Bang. We're extremely lucky. We might not even see that second shake or that second Big Bang, or even that last Meteor if we're extremely lucky here.
Even getting a reflected white from Rosa here. Just pumping out all the damage we possibly can.
Yep. There are some other very interesting things you can see with that reflected damage, but I don't think we're going to see any of those today. And in fact, there's the crack boom. Possum has defeated Zeronis in third place behind Wylam, who finished in second with 1:29.53. Possum is finished in third with a time of 1 hour, 34 minutes, and 45 seconds. GG's.
Yes, GG. Very well done.
And with that done, let's see if we can get Possum in here for an interview. While we wait for that, I do see that Telegraph has also headed back to the Blue Planet with the Baron key in hand. And I believe that indicates that we are now joined by Possum Morpheus, who has finished the race in third place. GG's.
Hey, that's me.
Well done.
GG's.
So, before I launch into any of the rest of the questions, how did you feel about that whole seed and just having Dark Knight Cecil along for everything?
I mean, it was fun. We had basically everything we could want for Edge with the Amosas available and the Zeus gauntlets. And we got to sell a couple crystal swords. I thought you could dart a Lightbringer. I was wrong, so then I had to go sell that too. But there was a lot of power, so it was fun. I liked it.
The thought ever crossed your mind on the note of that Lightbringer that we might actually need to go to ordeals, like maybe the package is there or something. So no thought of keeping that in the event that we actually needed to get that last Cecil, that last Paladin Cecil up and running.
Oh heavens no! I was going to dart it at Ogo, but that's when I found out it wasn't a dart. There was no equipping a Cecil in this seed.
Yeah.
If we had to go up ordeals, that was a non-starter.
Yeah. So let's talk about earlier on in the seed for the moment. While this might not be the type of flag set where this normally applies, I know you've been a big proponent of not filling out your party too early in the seed, and yet fairly early on, before you even did any boss checks, we saw you fitting out the rest of your party and just filling it up. And what was your reasoning behind that this time around?
I figured with relaxed characters on, it might be beneficial to poke around and see specifically, is there a Fusoya out there? That would really have been a driving factor. Knowing that Fusoya is available changes the entire layout of things. So if Fu was out there, it's a benefit. If he's not, it's a detriment. But could have picked up, an extra edge. Could have picked up, and I did pick up a cane, which was kind of nice early on. But yeah, I mean, could have just gone through and taken edge basically by himself with Cecil and just, blew everything up. But the allure of a Fu is too much on free characters.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And as it happens, you did find your second edge eventually, and even a third edge too late in the seed for it to make a difference. So that kind of tracks. So after your little journey after checking the Murasame altar, picking up the Baron key, and doing your checks on Earth after that, when you headed back up to the moon, your very first check there was the Crystal Sword altar, which totally paid off for you, but might go a little bit against the conventional wisdom of heading down to the bottom of the moon for the greater density of key item checks. And what was your thinking behind doing that this time around?
I mean, basically at that point, like, having faded Harp as long as I did, Harp, if it was the answer, there would have been dot dones already. My assumption also is if it were at like the ribbon room and someone just went straight to the bottom of the moon, they also would have finished already. So by the time I get back to the moon after doing all that, I figure that it either has to be behind something extremely rude at the Masamune altar, or it has to be behind the Crystal Sword altar. So it's like, well, I already did the top-down portion, let's just continue it. Just a matter of playing the opponents, really. Like, looking at the finishing times and seeing, off-stream Tybalt and Wylam finishing, within 90 seconds of each other, it makes sense. That if they routed top down and didn't stop for Baron or went bottom up, that they would have hit the Crystal Sword altar at about the same time. Which makes sense why they would have finished where they did. So is your reasoning behind leaving the moon with the Baron key in hand after having checked the Murasame altar sort of along the same lines, or is there a different reason for that? I just don't want to walk the lunar subterranean. So if I can avoid doing that, I'll do it. The Murasame altar and Cave Value kind of go hand in hand for me. That I'll do those top two spots and then bail on the moon, chase that Baron key, and then kind of head out from there. It was fairly unlikely that that was the right play, given that Case Summon had already paid out with 3 key items, the Baron key being from Cave Value, the Sand Ruby from the Ruby at Leviathan, and then the Darkness from Octo at Asura. It was fairly unlikely that the Baron Basement in particular was going to pay off, so it was kind of just a singular K-main check, a long one. So statistically at that point, it wasn't a good play. But again, in one of these races, like if you want to try to win, you got to do something against the grain. Very rarely you're going to be able to just play and do something in a linear fashion and get the win on one of these. So you got to take your chances, and it didn't pay off today, but that's fun. So it was fun. It was fun.
That's totally fair. Regent Levine, do you have any questions for Possum today?
I think you pretty much covered it. A lot of my questions were about these routing decisions, because that's something I'm really trying to internalize. So I think you summed all that up really well. So thank you very much. It was very cool.
Yeah, my pleasure. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate y'all. Doing the comms, Escrunt, Raging Levine. And is this your first time on comms, my friend?
Yes, it is.
Ah, well, welcome, and pleasure to have you, and hope to see more of you. So, GG's to both of you on comms. I'm sure it'll be fun to watch back. Ribbon Quest, thank you for pushing the buttons, and Alchemy, as always, thank you for rolling us what turned out to be a rather nice seed. And I do hope we get to find out the answer to the question of can night mode yeet a pass from the shops, because we did not get to find it out on this seed today.
Well, we'll get the answer to that someday, but it's not today apparently. Thank you for joining us, Possum.
Yeah, thank y'all, and everyone have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Yeah. Okay, and well, we heard from Possum. Talgrat is now also on his way down into the rest of the lunar subterrane. So we'll see if Talgrat chooses to route check similarly, or perhaps goes with the conventional wisdom of taking those bottom checks first.
Yes, it should definitely be interesting to see how he chooses to route the moon here, and what choices he makes, and see how those contrast with what Possum did.
Yeah. And yeah, we do see Talgrat checking the Murasame altar first. Notably, as opposed to Possum's logic earlier, having checked this significantly later than he did Cape Bahamut.
Yeah, we're about to run right back into those Baron guards once again, see if they get shrunk down or otherwise controlled.
Yep. Well, Talgrat does have a bit of a different party here than Possum did at this point, notably having only the one Edge as a... Well, he has Edge and he has Kane right now as his Berserkers. With, I believe, Rosa and Rydia and, of course, our hero, Dark Knight Cecil, as backup right now.
Still should be able to blast through these folks fairly quickly.
And, I mean, it could well be that, it'll be interesting to see if we get to see who the bosses at the rest of the bottom of the moon are. Because it's, here's the guards fight. Okay, so rather than doing anything elaborate, just chooses to have Rydia break out the stone and immediately end the fight.
Always nice to see some of those lesser used spells come out for these encounters where the boss bit is not on. Some enemies we can just use these status spells on and deal with them quickly.
Yep, it's very handy to be able to do that for those 3 boss fights.
Looks like we were actually swerved a little bit by the music. I'm seeing a Final Fantasy IX up here.
Aha. Well,
Edward tricked us.
It's still Final Fantasy in any case.
The ballpark.
Talgrat, having cleared that fight, is now on his way down to the rest of the moon. We'll see how he chooses to route this soon enough. I will take a moment to point out, of course, that Talgrat hasn't fought the boss in Mist Cave yet, so we'll have to do 2 things in rapid succession once he lands with the package in hand, but those 2 checks are in very close proximity to one another, so that might be a reason to just leave that until the last moment.
I was wondering about that. That makes a lot of sense, since those are literally right next to each other on the world map. It's easy to just go from one to the other. That makes perfect sense. A nice, efficient piece of routing from Talgrat here. I like that. Yes, the same neighborhood as our tracker Ribbon Quest is pointing out.
Well, they both have Mist in the name. Of course they're going to be close by, right?
Yeah, that's definitely how cities work.
Yeah. And there must be at least a few reasons why it's called Mist Cave, right?
Yeah, certainly there's a Mist Dragon in there, not some other crazy.
Talgrat is on his way up to the Crystal Sword Altar as well. So this, of course, will pay off handsomely for Talgrat because we know that this is where the package is.
Oh yes, this is nice to see. Very happy to see Tall Grant hopping over to visit Wyvern with a mouthful of needles here.
Yep. Now, is that more or less than 1,000 needles, do you think?
I'm gonna ask. I didn't count, but it looked like it was in the ballpark of 1,000.
Yeah.
A few things about over 200, a 173.
Close enough.
The package said 1,000, but I didn't count them.
Anyway, we see Kane has that Dragoon Lance equipped and is dealing quad 9s with jumps to Wyvern. Would probably be dealing a similar amount of damage even with just regular attacks here.
We should be able to push through this pretty quickly. And yes, baiting the Mega Nuke here with the Bahamut, bouncing that right off Dark Knight Cecil.
And almost everyone survived that Mega Nuke, just not Kane. That's fine. Kane already has more than enough health to survive the Zoro's fight anyway. Tall Grant gets his package. We'll presumably be heading straight back down to turn in those last 2 objectives, then we go fight Zeromus himself.
Yeah, too bad about Kane, but I know he wanted to bring a Moonrock back, so he had to crouch down and pick one up real quick.
Well, I mean, Kane deserves to be betrayed himself every now and again, as far as I'm concerned.
I guess with Dark Knight Cecil, maybe he's taking the chance to do the betrayal first. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, Tall Grant did not get the pass yet.
Yeah, Tall Grant missed the Feymarch item shop, and so does not know that the pass is there, so does not have a pass. Now, with that in mind, I wonder if Tall Grant will remember to actually check some of the item shops, or even remember to go back down to the Feymarch to check the item shop to try and pick up the pass. But if you don't know where the pass is in shops and you don't have one already, you probably don't want to spend too much time doing that, because eventually there will be a point where the time spent walking down the moon will just outweigh the time you spent looking for a pass.
Right, on balance, unless you manage to just very luckily spike the pass quickly, you're going to spend less time walking down the lunar subterranean. That makes a lot of sense. Plus, it's a nice walk. It's very it's a nice scenic walk. Why skip it? And presumably we're going to see Tall Grant heading on over, straight into Mist.
The dwarves have taken their revenge on Mist once more. And
if you want to stay for the pyrotechnics show here in Mist, you're going to buy your whole seat, but you'll only need the end.
That's interesting. Tall Grant did just pick up the crystal there, so in the midst of one of those internet hiccups, he must have gone into Mist Cave and defeated the Odin that's sitting there.
Oh, very good. So it sounds like we'll be seeing Lavamus again very soon.
Yep. One moonwalk later.
Two ninjas just staring each other down, but one has a big earthquake machine.
Yep. It's kind of interesting. Normally ninjas don't get those quake spells. I wonder where he pulled it from. Does over 100 damage.
Over 100, yes. Hey, I mean, Titan's got all those big muscles, right? Probably would self-describe as a machine.
Okay, so with the crystal in hand, Tall Grant, of course, has done sufficient grinding to be able to take Zeromus at this point, so it should be heading directly to that fight.
Yeah, presumably we will see some zerked up folks, and that Rydia just making short work of Zeromus once again, making sure that Cursed Ring is on Dark Knight Cecil where it belongs to help anchor that agility in that fight as well. Now, believe it or not, I'm not super familiar with the agility growth of Dark Knight Cecil.
Tallgren actually does have a pass. I just saw it in his inventory.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
We must have all missed that. So, no Moonwalk today. We're just going to see him go directly to Jiraiya and start the fight immediately.
That'll make things a little easier for Tallgren here. No need to walk the whole moon. Just step right through this door because Dark Knight Cecil is on the list.
Yeah, here we go. Back up for the rerun of the Lavosmus fight. Now, Edge notwithstanding, we still have a fairly similar party setup here to what we saw with Possum, so I think we're going to see very similar strategies here. Zerk up the Edge, Zerk up the Kane, let Rydia bounce nuke off of things, probably let Rosa have a white or two as a tweet.
Yes, I think that if Dark Knight Cecil were to give Lavamus the speech about justice here, that might end the fight pretty much immediately.
No, the problem with that is that ends the fight in Lavamus' favor, so I don't think we're going to get the speech today.
That's why the future refused to change. I understand. Can you survive 3 Big Bangs without attacking? Oh, I love it. Well done. Well done.
No, that's it's supposed to work the other way around. Unless they're saying, like, DK Seamus or something.
Well, since we already know whose butt we're kicking today, it's a little academic, but we can always hope for Painmus.
Yeah. Yeah, DK Seamus.
As long as we get that nice fireworks show at the end, I'll be happy.
Anyway, with the internet hiccups, we're probably going to miss out on a lot of fire details of the fight, but I can only imagine that this is going very similarly to what we saw unfold for Possum's stream. As I described, Zerk Edge and Kane, stick a Starbell and so on, probably Rydia, and bounce spells off of that for pure hybrid strats.
And we could just fake it, right? You know, oh my gosh, look at the great timing of that Big Bang nerf. Well done, Tallgren. I assume.
And yes, as we expected, it looks like that's exactly what's happened. Although it's Kane that has the Starbell, interestingly enough.
Now this is something that I see some of the runners do. I see Tallgren pausing in the middle of that nuke animation. Is there a reason for that?
The only reason that I've been able to discern is just to mute the nuke sound. It doesn't have any other effect rather than that.
I understand.
Yeah, very similar to the reason why you'll sometimes see people pause on the crumble animation just to get rid of the sound.
While I love those wonderful, bespoke Super Nintendo sounds, I understand that once you hear them a certain amount of times, they may get a little stiff.
I mean, I don't particularly care about the sound effects, but even I find myself inflexibly pausing whenever some of those sounds start playing. Mostly the crumble sounds.
I mean, once you see all of these fantastic runners doing it on stream, it's hard not to start hitting that start button yourself. I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, even the white sound? But you never get to hear that.
More bouncing spells, more hits from Edge, more hits from Kane.
And plenty of hit points on everybody to survive a Big Bang, so even if something does go unnerfed, we would be able to recover here pretty handily. Even Dark Knight Cecil might survive an unnerfed Big Bang, although, well, maybe.
He certainly does have enough health that that's not impossible.
Looks like he did eat a counter nuke there.
Took it like a champ.
actually. I think it was a Big Bang. Never mind. Either way, Tall Grant's party is dealing with all of that quite handily. No problems here as we just continue to bounce these nukes and swing our swords. Should be just any moment now.
Yep.
Happy to see Kane making it to the end with Cecil here. Very thematic.
I mean, if you think about it, this is exactly our vanilla party right at the end here, except for the fact that Cecil's still a Dark Knight.
Oh my gosh, that's right! Wow, well done.
I only just noticed that somehow.
Some extra meta challenge points for Tall Grant here. I know I have no power to grant any points for any reason, but you enjoy some Raging Levine points. They're redeemable someday. Don't worry about it.
Okay, any moment now.
Quad 9s on that nuke, always nice to see.
Good, good. And one last question mark, Big Bang.
I think it's got to be the last one at this point. We've seen quite a lot of damage go out on Lavos, and even though we're getting that unnerfed Big Bang here, I think I think that means Tall Grant.
That's it. Yes, that's it. There's the crack boom flash. Tall Grant finishes the race with a time of in 6th place with a time of 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 47 seconds. GG's.
GG, well done.
We'll see if we can get Tall Grant in here for an interview as well. That little data. I believe we are also joined by Tall Grant. GG's.
GG's, guys. Thanks. That was fantastic seed to play. Boy, that was a lot of fun.
It looked like a lot of fun. You got to go all over the place looking for that package, all the way underground into Feymarch, all the way up to the moon, just chasing it everywhere.
Well, I did a couple of really inefficient things in the early going, and just didn't quite get to where I needed to, dealing with the well, I settled down after a little bit, but you know, Possum's a really good runner. If anybody was watching, he happened to win a big tournament fairly recently. Spoiler alert. So I knew if I wanted to be anything that was close to him, I needed to take a couple of chances. And once I settled down, I think the Sheila lack of Sheila turn-in was more a brain fart on my part. But once I had kind of settled down, it's like, all right, where can I go? So let's do the harp early. You know, let's scum save out of that. Baron Key up in cave value. In fact, let's do cave value. Let's do top down. That's not normally how I would approach this seed, but it's kind of I felt that time pressure and was just chasing Possum.
So, is that your reasoning for taking the Crystal Sword Altar as soon as you did? As I've said fairly recently, normally the conventional wisdom would be to go down to the bottom of the moon at that point for your boss and key item check density.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's the reason why usually when I hit up to the moon, the first thing I do, you know, I'm not usually a top-down person. I'm usually, let's go to the bottom, let's hit the ribbon room because there's the 2 chests in there, and then you've got Mazamune and White Spear right next to it. Those are good checks. There's good experience to get there, but you know, this is kind of a let's be contrarian. And by the time I got to Crystal Sword Altar, I knew that a lot of my checks hadn't paid off, especially for all the time that I had wasted chasing the Baron Key and then the basement after it. So it's kind of like, you know what? This is the philosophy we came into play the seed with. Let's finish it out the way we did it.
Well, funnily enough, Possum did exactly the same thing in checking the 2 top moon checks and then going to check Baron Key and then returning to the moon and immediately doing the Crystal Sword Altar.
Well, that's what I get for trying to save time against him, I guess. He is a clever marsupial. But no, that was really fun. I was actually really proud of a couple of plays I made in there. I don't think I checked the moon shop. Did anybody happen to see if there were sirens up there or not?
Yes, there were.
There were indeed.
that being said, with how deep the Darkness Crystal was buried and the fact that you had to go do that junk in the Fey March, I don't regret stopping and picking him up in Lower Babel like I did, and I was really pleased with my play to grab that cane mid-game, have that Dragoon. I didn't want to take him when I first found him because I didn't have a good weapon for him, but once I hit on that Dragoon Spirit, that was a play that came into my mind pretty quickly for how I was going to get my levels and get up where I wanted to go.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense.
I also thought that was really well done. It's always nice to see the runners picking up on those subtle things, thinking, oh, okay, I do have that item in my inventory that I am not using, but it is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, it was a really good time. It's nice to get that lava shout out with the Z fight. That was also, a really nice thing, and I love the music too. I mean, this was a really, really fun seed to play, and I think Alchemy's great fear is that the meta objective could be messed up if the package or Darkness Crystal got stuck behind the ordeals, but thankfully it didn't happen today.
Yep. We got to take Dark Knight Cecil all the way through the Zermos fight. It's what we all wanted to see.
Well, it's fun, and I did the async for this as practice. I actually had picked up a new interesting tidbit that I almost messed up on going into the Z fight, and that's that the Black Sword on Cecil adds 5 agility to him, and it made my anchoring for that last fight a lot better just remembering to take that off of him.
That is a piece of trivia which you're probably not going to remember in normal circumstances.
Again, well, one of the fun things about this club when Alchemy runs it is that there is there is a practice async that'll go up. They usually go up on Sunday at some point whenever, Alchemy rolls out of bed and decides it's time to roll it. And it's European time. It happens before I'm awake. It doesn't bother me. But that it's really fun because when you come into this, you're not coming in completely blank. You have a chance to go mess around, make the mistakes, make the suboptimal plays. In fact, when I ran the practice seed, I missed that free characters were on, and so I got to do the practice seed without a white mage. So this was, walk in the park today instead.
Yeah.
Comparatively much easier, I'm sure, to be able to just say, oh, I'll go to my city and pick up everybody.
Yep. But overall, I mean, it was a fun seed, and that was a really great time to play. So,
yeah, well, thank you. It was a lot of fun to watch you work through the seed, and I thought you did a really great job. So, GG again.
GG guys, and a special shout out to our restream team for Escront and Alchemy, who made the everything behind the scenes happen. That's always greatly appreciated. Of course, they deserve your follows on Twitch, and of course, I've been watching Ribbon Quest and Raging Levine. They're both really fun watches. I highly recommend you go check them out.
You make it sound as though I'm behind the scenes, which I'm not today, but I usually am.
That's right, Scrunt. You were calling it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts before we send you on your way?
No, this is a great club if you're out watching it. I highly encourage you to give it a shot. It's a ton of fun. Thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
All right, and while that brings our restream for the day to a close, we've certainly got more free enterprise content for you coming up in the future. Starting with tomorrow's race from the perspective of, and I believe this week it is Rosa for that particular club. Of course, we'll also have the Monday and Friday community races, as well as more clubs running during the week. But for now, we are going to be sending you over to NG Dave, who is running this week's Trickers Trials async. So if you might be interested in running that yourself, please do be warned that that is a race, and that might not be something you want to see. But if you're not interested in running it yourself, by all means, come along and join us. Thank you for watching today. Have a good rest of your day.